Hey everyone, and welcome back. In a video I released a few days ago, I explored the United Nations General Assembly's request for an advisory opinion on the obligation of states to address climate change. If you missed that video, I'll link to it in the description below. But today I want to look at the second half of Vanuatu's legal strategy for addressing global climate change. Hey everyone, I'm Noah Zerbe. I'm a professor of global politics at California State Polytechnic University, Humboldt. Welcome to IR Explainer, where I explore the theories and concepts behind current events in international relations and global politics. Vanuatu is a small island developing country located in the South Pacific. With an average elevation of less than 400 meters and a per capita GDP of less than $3,000, Vanuatu has become one of the key members of the Association of Small Island States, or AOSIS, and a key advocate in the global debate around climate change. In my last video, we looked at the request for an advisory opinion on climate change. In this video, I want to examine Vanuatu's legal strategy and what it might hope to achieve through the International Court of Justice. Vanuatu's plans to launch lawsuits against companies like ExxonMobil, Shell, Chevron, BP, Arch Coal, and others is rooted in a legal claim that these companies were aware of and actively misrepresented the dangers of using fossil fuels, and with the support of Western governments, actively obstructed the changes necessary to mitigate the negative impacts of climate change. As a result, Vanuatu says these companies violated their citizens' rights to a healthy environment, to life, and to self-determination. This case highlights the complex interplay of power dynamics, environmental justice, and global governance in international relations, and it implicates a number of issues in international relations, including the tragedy of the commons, the North-South divide, and the role of international institutions. The global climate crisis can be seen as a classic example of the tragedy of the commons, a concept that describes how individuals and countries acting in their own self-interest can deplete or degrade shared resources. In this case, Vanuatu alleges that the major greenhouse gas emitting countries have prioritized their own economic development, leading to the overuse of fossil fuels and the accumulation of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. This has resulted in devastating consequences for the global climate, disproportionately affecting small developing island nations like Vanuatu. Vanuatu's lawsuit also highlights the persistent inequalities between the developed and developing countries, often referred to as the North-South divide. While industrialized countries of the global north have historically contributed the most to greenhouse gas emissions, Vanuatu maintains that it is the developing countries in the global south that are suffering the brunt of these impacts, such as sea level rise and extreme weather events. Vanuatu's lawsuit seeks to address this inequality by holding major emitters accountable for the damage they have caused to vulnerable nations. And finally, Vanuatu's choice of forums is an interesting one. The International Court of Justice serves as a key international institution in resolving disputes between states. By taking its case to the ICJ, Vanuatu is attempting to utilize the international legal system to achieve what it views as climate justice. However, the ICJ's jurisdiction is based on the consent of the involved parties, and it remains to be seen whether major greenhouse gas emitting countries will accept the court's jurisdiction in this case. Vanuatu's lawsuit underscores the limitations of international institutions in addressing global climate challenges, particularly when more powerful states may be reluctant to comply. So, will Vanuatu's case be successful? That depends. I think it's highly unlikely that Vanuatu will ever collect monetary damages from the companies or countries they're suing. The jurisdictional issues around whether or not all parties will accept the court's decision limit the ICJ's ability to adjudicate the matter and potentially render the lawsuit unsuccessful. Indeed, countries have a history of withdrawing from the court's jurisdiction when it rules against them. France, for example, withdrew from the ICJ's compulsory jurisdiction after a series of cases brought by Australia and New Zealand against its nuclear testing program in the South Pacific in the 1970s weren't going their way. And in 1986, the United States withdrew its acceptance of the court's compulsory jurisdiction after the court ruled against it in the case of Nicaragua v. United States. Relatedly, the lawsuit might run into problems related to the doctrine of sovereign immunity. Essentially, sovereign immunity protects states and their officials from being sued in foreign courts, holding that states can only be sued in foreign courts if they consent. Now, this doctrine has been narrowed in recent years, particularly in efforts to protect against human rights violations. Nevertheless, should defendants argue that they should be immune from the lawsuit under the doctrine of sovereign immunity, Vanuatu may have difficulty moving the case forward. Vanuatu might also face attributional challenges, as providing a direct link between specific greenhouse gas emitting countries and the climate impacts experienced by Vanuatu may be difficult. The complex nature of climate change, with its global scope and multiple contributing factors, could make it difficult for Vanuatu to establish a clear change of causation in the lawsuit. That said, there are a couple of interesting precedents here. The Urgenda case in the Netherlands was a 2015 decision by the Dutch courts that the government of the Netherlands had a legal obligation to protect their citizens from climate change. In their decision, the court ordered the government of the Netherlands to cut national greenhouse gas emissions by 20% from 1990 levels. The Juliana case in the United States argued that the U.S. government had failed to protect the life, liberty, and property of the plaintiffs and present and future generations from damages caused by climate change. The case was dismissed in 2020 after the court found that although the plaintiffs had demonstrated the government's role in causing climate change, the appropriate remedy should come from the executive and legislative branches rather than from the courts or the judicial branches. A third case is currently underway at the European Court of Human Rights, where a group of Swiss women are arguing that climate change threatens their health and quality of life. But even if Vanuatu is successful and wins its lawsuit, the International Court of Justice lacks robust enforcement mechanisms to ensure that the major greenhouse gas emitting countries comply with any court ruling. The success of the lawsuit could ultimately be undermined if the defendants do not take meaningful action to address the consequences of climate change and support vulnerable nations like Vanuatu. Nevertheless, Vanuatu's lawsuit still might represent an important political moment in addressing climate change at the global level. By filing the lawsuit, Vanuatu has succeeded in drawing international attention to the plight of the small nation and the consequences it faces with respect to climate change. The increased awareness could generate greater political pressure or public pressure on major greenhouse gas emitting countries and compel them to take more aggressive action on climate change and increase support for vulnerable nations. It could also generate further lawsuits in courts like the European Court of Human Rights or in the domestic courts of individual states, where the jurisdictional issues and the problem of sovereign immunity are mitigated. Given the wide variety of issues implicated in the case, it's going to be an interesting one to watch moving forward, but that's it for now. If you found this video interesting, click the thumbs up button and subscribe to catch future explainers as they're released. Please leave any questions you have about this video or any suggestions you have for future explainer topics in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.